Welcome back, guys and girls, to another episode of Dad's Toy Garage. And I'm going to be working on Project Judith, my 1973 Toyota CELICA. And I'm going to be doing more block sanding today. We're going to try and get the style line done up into 220 grit with body filler and block sanding. So follow along, let's have some fun with this, and let's see what we get done. Well, I was on eBay and I picked up something I've been talking about in the videos. I need the weather strip for the doors, and so that came, and I came out of Thailand. I'm actually very surprised. It was only a week to get here. It said like a month in shipping, but so the door weather strip is here. I haven't actually looked at this yet. I just sort of opened it, but it's the weather strip for the doors. It's got the pre-molded pieces in there. Clips. I'm probably gonna have to pull clips and use old ones for now because we're gonna damage them. They're one-use clips, which is kind of a little bit frustrating because the doors on the car need to have this test for block sanding, but then come out to block sand the door jambs. So I discarded the old weather strip now that I got the new. I kept all the clips. Here's the new stuff. And since they're one-time use clips, I'm thinking if they come out of here nice and easily, I'm going to put these aside and just load them up with a couple of these, just enough to hold them on. And can also keep these as spares, but that way when I go to put this on the final time after it's painted, this weather strip should still work nice with these clips staying tight. I managed to pull out all the brand new clips, and old ones are here because I've done every other. Just makes removal a little easier later, and so I'm gonna go throw that in the car and see how they stack up against my door gaps. Here's the weather strip I ordered from Thailand. The seller was Anna Shop, I believe, or something in that nature. It was the one on eBay and current listings that had free shipping, and the price was still cheaper than the rest, but the weather stripping fits very well. It is a Toyota genuine part. I might as well show you guys the part numbers here. So if you guys want the weather stripping, as you can see, it's genuine Toyota stuff, and that's the part number for one, and that's the part number for the other. I've also done the door latch and pull on the inside of the car, including, I think you call it the striker. So I'm going to do it on both sides of the car now, but now I can at least close the door, and that is tight on there. Now when I go across the gaps, the door also won't move like it does when it's on the tarp strap. So, and the fitment is still really good on it. It will take actually minimal to go across the gap on this side, which makes me quite happy. So I have this part of the latch striker system. I've ground off the back of this here, and I'm going to oval the holes a little bit and tack weld it in place. I need to set it back a little bit because my door on, well, this door here does not pull tight enough by about that much, so we're going to try and pull this in and see if that works over here. So I've welded it back together, and I moved it back a fair amount, and the door sits flush now. I'm guessing it has to do a little bit with quarter panel stuff being redone, something in that nature, but this should work now, so we'll get it back on the car. Move that striker back like how I modified it, fix the door. We got our gap where it needs to be now. And it looks like this now. It's in a little bit farther, but it does the trick. Now it works. So that's a good thing. So as you saw in the last episode on this build, I have the tape laid out of where I want my crisp, sharp lines to be on the driver's side of my car. And as I was doing that, I noticed, through blasting, these tops of the doors inside on these cars can rust a little bit because there's a double layer. And I think here's one spot I missed that blew through when they were blasting. So I'm going to just drill that out and tack weld it in and grind it off. And I also noticed here on my bodywork, because everything was butt welded, I'm thinking I didn't have enough gap here. I grinded too much away, but it looks like it's split here and a little bit here on the fender. So I'm going to tackle those 3 spots with the welder and the grinder, and then we'll get into actually sanding the rest of this down with 80 grit and then applying the body filler. So let's get into that. I took and drilled out this hole, or the pinhole, made it bigger, so if there's a little bit of rust still hiding behind there, I got more metal, lasts me a little bit longer there, more to work with. I just took a grinder, ground down the crack here, and ground down the little bit of imperfection I found there. So I'm going to weld that in there, and yeah, we'll grind that down and start our body work. I want to get that before it becomes a bigger problem and cracks with body filler on it. I got that spot on the top of the door welded and ground down. That one's done, and that one's done, so they're no longer cracks, and they're ready for body working now. The top of the car side, I guess, you can see it's in body filler now. I'm about to retape the edges and start block sanding on it. I made a little oops here, nothing serious. It just became a challenge. When I went over this edge here, you can see how it's darker, more green than yellow on this side. I mixed a little bit extra hardener than I had over here, so I ran out of work time after cleaning my putty board to come trim this out. So I actually had to hacksaw it out a little bit. Nothing big deal. So I was more mindful of it on this side. Tape is done. Time for 80 grit sanding. Block sanding is done in 80 grit along the top now. Let's give you a walk by on that. The other thing I've done is I've marked pinholes and refill spots. There's a couple little things in here. You can see a couple of the bigger pinholes in this panel, for example's sake. Yeah, I'll cover those, shave them off with a knife, and then hit it with 80 grit again. And then we'll move down to 180 and 220. So I've got the pinholes and little imperfections that I found yet filled up, and now we're going to do it in 80 grit sandpaper one more time on these areas, and then we'll work our way down to 220. Pinholes are all sanded down with 80 grit now. Got one little spot left in the back corner here. And now I'm going to work down to 120 and 220. Block sanding is done with 220 grit. kind of like this body line up. And I had to round off this edge. You saw me doing that with the tape after I pulled the tape off. And then I'm going to work this top edge now. And then this section into here will be next, the top of the fender. It's a smaller area, so we'll get it over with. Little details in here. And then once that's done, I'm going to go down to the bottom of the side of the car. I'm now going to tackle this top portion of the fender and door, not the cowl though. So we'll start by taping it off and scuffing it up, and then we'll put some body filler on it. So I did a round 1 of black sand with 80 grit, and I noticed there was a high spot that came through here, so I tapped it down a little bit with a screwdriver. I skimmed it over again. We're going to block sand that one more time. This should be nice and flat. I don't want any hump in this area. Then over here, since I'm going across the gaps, I got this edge laid out here. I'm going to sand that one more time, get that nice and flush. And because of all the years of use, where the mirror sits right here, I ended up that there's a bit of a hollow here, so I've filled that, and we're going to block sand it one more time. And for this area here, in the DuraBlock set, I'm using this little guy here. It works really well. Top of the fender is now done. Block sanded down to 220. Thanks a lot, guys and girls, for stopping by for another episode of Dad's Toy Garage, working on my 1973 Toyota CELICA, and it feels good to see this much progress being made on the car. She's starting to look really sharp. Yeah, tune in next time. I'm planning on next video for this car, getting the rest of that side block sanded, and up to that point we got like engine bay, hood, and spoiler left. So yeah, and I also want to say thank you for those of you who have been following the channel, subscribing, liking the videos. It means a lot to me. It lets me know that you guys are appreciating what I'm doing. So we'll talk to you later.